The US government just admitted it invented nearly 1 million jobs that never existed. And that's the second time in 2 years. What else are they making up? And who profits when workers believe the lie? Let me be very clear about what happened. In September 2025, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released its preliminary benchmark revision. The number? 911,000 jobs that were reported as created between April 2024 and March 2025 simply didn't exist. They were phantoms, statistical ghosts. This came just 1 year after the August 2024 revision, when BLS admitted that 818,000 jobs reported for the prior year were also fake. That was the third largest negative revision in 46 years. Do the math. In 2 consecutive years, America's official employment scorekeepers have erased nearly 1.7 million jobs from the record. These weren't minor adjustments. The 2025 revision meant that average monthly job growth was actually only 70,000, less than half the 146,000 that had been trumpeted in headlines, moved financial markets, and justified Federal Reserve policy decisions. Now you might ask, how does this happen? Is this incompetence? Bad luck? Let me walk you through the machinery of deception, because what you're about to see isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. Here's how the con works. Every month, the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases employment numbers. These numbers land like gospel. Markets move. The Federal Reserve adjusts interest rate expectations. Politicians declare victory or sound alarms. Cable news hosts gesticulate at charts. But here's what they don't tell you in the headline. Those numbers are preliminary. Guesses, really. They get revised twice in the following months. Then, a full year later, they get benchmarked against actual unemployment insurance tax records, the only hard data we have. By that time, of course, the narrative is set. The Fed has already raised or cut rates. Elections have been won or lost. Investment decisions have been made. And when the revision comes, a year or more after the fact, it's buried on page 16 or dismissed as technical housekeeping. This is the revision cascade, and it's a shield. It protects the initial lie long enough for it to do its work. The preliminary number shapes reality. The revision arrives too late to matter. But there's something even more brazen going on. America doesn't have one employment measure. It has 2. And they've been telling completely opposite stories. The first is called the Establishment Survey. It samples over 650,000 work sites and asks employers how many people are on their payrolls. The second is the Household Survey. It samples 60,000 households and asks people directly whether they're employed. Both are published by BLS, both are official, and in 2023 they diverged wildly. The Establishment Survey, the one that gets the headlines, said the US economy created 1.2 million jobs. The Household Survey said the economy lost 100,000 jobs. Same period, same country, opposite conclusions. So which one did the Federal Reserve cite when keeping interest rates high? Which one did politicians trumpet on the campaign trail? Which one made it into every cable news chyron? You already know the answer. They picked the number that justified their policies. The Household Survey, the one that actually counts people, not jobs, was ignored. It didn't fit the narrative of a strong labor market that could handle more rate hikes, more austerity, more discipline. Now let me introduce you to the birth-death model. Yes, that's its real name, and no, I'm not making this up. Here's the problem it's meant to solve. New businesses take months to appear in BLS sampling frames. When a startup hires 10 people, those jobs won't show up in the survey data for quite some time. So BLS has to estimate how many jobs are being created by businesses that aren't yet in the sample. Fair enough. But here's how they do it. They use a statistical model based on business formation and closure patterns from 5 years ago. And they apply that model to data that's already 10 to 12 months old. Think about what that means. In July 2023, the birth-death model adjustments were based on data from the third quarter of 2022. We are trying to measure the present using patterns from half a decade ago, applied to information that's already a year stale. And here's the truly obscene part. BLS openly admits this model tends to fail precisely when you need it most, at economic turning points. When the economy is shifting from expansion to contraction, or when structural changes are underway, the model assumes the future will look like the past. It can't see the turn. It's driving forward while staring in the rear-view mirror. How big is this fiction? In October 2023, the birth-death model added an estimated 412,000 jobs to the headline number. 412,000. Without that algorithmic guess, the US economy would have lost 262,000 jobs that month. But the headline read, "Strong job growth." The model has been overestimating consistently for 3 consecutive years. It's not a glitch, it's systematic. And it gets worse. Remember those survey response rates I mentioned? The establishment survey used to get responses from around 70% of sampled businesses. Today, it's down to 40%. 40. That means for 6 out of 10 businesses in the sample, BLS has to guess what's happening based on the businesses that did respond. Now ask yourself, which businesses are most likely to ignore a government survey? The thriving ones, with HR departments and administrative capacity? Or the struggling ones, the ones barely keeping the lights on, the ones about to close? You see the bias now. The dying businesses don't respond. BLS imputes their data based on healthier firms. The result is a systematic overstatement of job creation. The phantom jobs aren't random errors. They're built into the methodology. The surveys are designed to miss economic distress until it's too late, until those businesses have already vanished and the benchmark revision quietly erases them from history. Now let's talk about what the establishment survey actually measures, because this is where the deception becomes almost elegant in its cruelty. The survey counts jobs, not people. One person working 3 part-time gig jobs appears in the data as 3 jobs created. That single mother driving for a ride-share app in the morning, delivering food at lunch, and working retail at night, she's not a person drowning in precarity. She's a jobs boom, statistical success. And the numbers bear this out. In May 2025, 8.5 million Americans were working multiple jobs. Surveys show that 53% of them cite financial necessity. They need those extra jobs just to cover basic expenses. 60% of all American workers live paycheck to paycheck. 60%. Yet, the headline unemployment rate sits at 4.1%, and we're told the labor market is strong. This is the divergence between the establishment and household surveys in human terms. The establishment survey sees 3 jobs and declares prosperity. The household survey sees 1 person who can't make rent and records desperation. But even that 4.1% unemployment figure is a lie, just a more refined one. That's the U3 rate, the official rate, the one that makes the headlines. It only counts people who are actively looking for work and have applied for jobs in the past 4 weeks. If you've given up because you've sent out 100 applications and heard nothing back, you're not unemployed, you're not in the labor force at all. If you're working part-time but desperate for full-time work because your 15 hours a week at minimum wage don't pay the bills, you're employed, fully employed, according to U3. This is why the U6 rate exists. It includes discouraged workers, people who've given up looking, and involuntary part-timers. And that rate? It's been running between 7.5 and 8%, nearly double the headline figure. That gap represents millions of people whose economic suffering has been definitionally erased. And then there are the people who aren't even counted in U6, the ones who've left the labor force entirely. The labor force participation rate, the share of working-age people who are either employed or actively looking, has been stuck between 62.4 and 62.5%. Compare that to the year 2000, when it peaked at 67.3%. That's a 5 percentage point gap. Millions of people who would have been working a quarter century ago have simply vanished from the statistics. They are not employed, they are not unemployed, they are not discouraged workers, they are ghosts. Out of the labor force, out of the count, out of mind. We've seen this before. During the Great Depression, official unemployment statistics systematically understated the crisis by excluding categories of workers and using definitions that made the catastrophe look manageable. Breadlines told one story, government statistics told another. People believed their eyes, not the numbers. Today's methodology is more sophisticated, but it serves the same function. It makes mass precarity look like full employment. It transforms desperation into data points that suggest health. And just as in the 1930s, the question we must ask is, who benefits when the numbers lie? 3 groups. First, the Federal Reserve. Strong employment data gives the Fed justification to keep interest rates high, which protects the returns of bondholders and creditors, the rentier class that lives off interest income. When Jerome Powell cites robust job growth while raising rates, he's not making a mistake. He's serving his constituency, finance capital. Never mind that by December 2024, wage growth had decelerated to just 3.9%, the lowest since 2021. Never mind that workers are getting squeezed. The official numbers say the labor market can take more punishment. Second, incumbent politicians. Whether Democrat or Republican, elected officials can point to job growth statistics and claim economic success. They can run for re-election on a foundation of phantom employment. By the time the revisions come out, 900,000 jobs that didn't exist. Oops, the election is over. The votes are counted. And who remembers a benchmark revision anyway? Third, corporations. When unemployment is officially low and job growth is officially strong, Employers have a ready-made talking point against wage demands. Why should we raise pay? The labor market is tight. You should be grateful to have a job. Look at the statistics. The fake strength of the labor market becomes a weapon against workers trying to claw back some dignity. The institutional machinery that produces these lies has a name: the Quarterly Census of Employment and Wages. It's the data source used for annual benchmark revisions. It's based on unemployment insurance tax records from all 50 states and covers about 97% of jobs. Sounds comprehensive. But here's what it doesn't count: self-employed workers, gig workers, contract workers, the entire shadow labor force that's exploded over the past 15 years. And remember that 10 to 12-month lag I mentioned. QCEW data doesn't just arrive late. It arrives blind to the very workers who are most precarious, most likely to be undercounted, most likely to be suffering. Meanwhile, the birth-death model continues to plug its 5-year-old assumptions into the gap, generating phantom jobs month after month, knowing full well it will fail at turning points, knowing the corrections will come too late to matter. And when you look at what's actually driving the job numbers that do exist, the picture gets even grimmer. In December 2024, the headline said 256,000 jobs created. Sounds robust. But break it down. Government added 33,000, healthcare added 46,000, leisure and hospitality added 43,000. That's over 120,000 of the total right there. Government hiring, which can continue regardless of private sector health, and low-wage service work. Meanwhile, construction lost jobs. Manufacturing lost jobs. The productive core of the economy is shedding workers while we're told to celebrate because the government hired more bureaucrats and someone opened another fast food franchise. There's one more wild card in this system, and it reveals just how broken the household survey really is. That survey is only benchmarked to the census once every 10 years, once per decade. Between censuses, population estimates are just that, estimates. When there is a surge in immigration, whether documented or not, the household survey doesn't capture it in real time. It can take years for those workers to appear in the statistics. After the 2000 census, BLS discovered they'd understated employment by 1.6 million people due to uncounted immigration. 1.6 million people who were working, living, contributing to the economy, but who were invisible to the official data for years. Now, in the 2020s, with massive flows of asylum seekers and undocumented workers, do you think the household survey is capturing them? Or are we once again building toward a census revision that will reveal years of undercounting or overcounting, depending on policy shifts? The system is flying blind, but with enormous confidence. At this point, defenders of BLS will say, revisions are normal. All statistical systems have error. Preliminary estimates serve a purpose. They give policymakers timely information, even if it's imperfect. Large revisions are rare exceptions. The system works as intended. Let me be very clear about why this argument is nonsense. Yes, revisions happen, but 818,000 jobs erased in 2024 was the third largest negative revision in 46 years. Then came 911,000 jobs erased in 2025. Two consecutive near million job downward revisions in 2 years is not normal variation. It's a pattern. It's systematic overestimation. And it's not random. The revisions consistently go in one direction, down. The preliminary numbers consistently overstate job creation. This serves power. It justifies rate hikes when they are politically convenient. It validates politicians claiming economic success. It suppresses wage demands by making workers think the labor market is tighter than it is. The preliminary numbers do their work in real time. They shape Federal Reserve decisions that affect millions of lives. They influence elections. They move trillions of dollars in financial markets. By the time the revision arrives, the policy is set, the election is over, the narrative is solidified. And no one is held accountable. No one at BLS loses their job. No politician has to give back their electoral victory. No Fed official has to apologize for raising rates based on fake data. The revision cascade isn't a feature that makes the system work. It's a feature that makes accountability impossible. So what are we left with? A statistical apparatus that counts jobs instead of people, that excludes millions who've given up looking for work, that relies on a model using 5-year-old data that's guaranteed to fail when the economy shifts, that samples businesses with plummeting response rates and guesses what non-respondents are doing, that takes over a year to correct its own fiction, and that just erased 1.7 million phantom jobs over 2 consecutive years. This isn't measurement. It's manufacturing consent. It's a system designed to tell elites what they want to hear and to tell workers that their lived reality, the multiple jobs, the paycheck-to-paycheck existence, the impossible rent, the vanished security, is a personal failure rather than a systemic one. Because look, unemployment is only 4%. The jobs numbers are strong. If you're struggling, that's on you. But 60% of workers living paycheck to paycheck know better. The 8.5 million people working multiple jobs know better. The millions who've left the labor force entirely know better. And now, with 2 consecutive revisions erasing nearly 1.7 million jobs, maybe the rest of us are starting to see it too. Here's what you need to watch. Every month, when the jobs report comes out, don't just look at the headline establishment survey number. Check the household survey. Look at the gap. Check U6, not just U3. See how many of those jobs came from the birth-death model. It's in the footnotes. They do publish it, just not in the headline. Watch the labor force participation rate and pay attention to the revisions, especially the benchmark revisions that come out every February, because those revisions are the truth catching up to the lie. But watching isn't enough. We need to demand something different. We need employment data that counts people, not jobs. That includes discouraged workers in the headline number, not in an alternative measure that gets ignored. That tracks job quality, wages, hours, benefits, stability, not just quantity. That publishes the birth-death model's contribution transparently in every headline, not buried in technical documentation. That benchmarks in real time using modern data infrastructure, not once a year, with a lag that makes the correction useless. None of this will happen as long as fake employment data serves its current purpose, justifying austerity, suppressing wages, enriching creditors, and re-electing politicians, while workers' suffering is statistically erased. The methodology won't be fixed because the methodology is working exactly as intended, just not for you. The government admitted it invented nearly 1 million jobs, twice. What else are they making up? And when will you stop believing them?